Happy Monday, English 220. Welcome to week 5 in the class. Congratulations on all of your hard work so far, and I do want to emphasize that you've done really good work. And I almost want to start there with my introduction this week, and then we'll talk a little bit about Essay 1. But I think it would be helpful for all of you to know sort of what my philosophy on grading is, because I'm getting a lot of feedback from some of you that you feel like you're not doing well in the class and that you don't know what you're doing wrong and why you're receiving the grades that you are. And honestly, I think you're an extremely strong class. And I guess the way I look at it as a composition teacher and as department chair, I feel a lot of responsibility to grades and to really feeling as though we're assigning grades at the aptitude that students are. So my thought about the C is really, we're kind of always working up from the C. The C means competency. You did the assignment, you followed instructions, you gave an effort, and you're competent in that assignment. So that's anywhere in that sort of 75 range, right? And then I think that all work moves up from there, right? Is that if I'm going to be completely honest, I think that A-level work is mastery of the assignment, right? That you, in the time given and the assignments and the guidelines, I could use your work in another class to show other students. That's what I mean by mastering an assignment. And I think a lot of you are falling in a B range, which I think for an online class, an advanced composition class, is a really good place to be. It means that you're going above the level of work that achieves competency, and you're putting additional effort in, your thinking is advanced, and maybe it's just that you haven't taken that one further step to provide maybe, like let's take the research exercise. And the research exercise this past, that you've been working on for Essay 1, it would have been really helpful for me to have more annotation on the research exercise. So you gave me your sources, you navigated all those databases, which was great, but then annotation is really important, which means you explain what the source is, how it may or may not be useful to your project. And if that wasn't clear in my assignment, every research exercise we do in this class, we have 2 more that we do for project 2 and 3, will be the same way. I would love to see some annotation. Who wrote this? What is this? So that I'm not just looking at a list of links. So that may have been part of where grades were on that research exercise. Peer responses, if I asked you for 2 and to have a couple of paragraphs each for each peer, then I'd like to see that level of writing and response to your peers. I think so much great conversation and dialogue happens when we write back and forth to each other. And to have to collect your thoughts and project them forward to someone in an organized way, I think the more practice we can get at, the better. So if you could really think about at least 2 paragraphs for peer responses. And this week we'll do a peer review where you'll write to your peers about their essays. And I like to have 2 pretty good, robust paragraphs when you respond back to your peers. It's also, unfortunately, the only way we can really simulate classroom conversation. I would love to be in the same room with all of you. I would love you to be in the same room with each other. But we unfortunately, with the online, we don't have that opportunity. So how can we simulate some of that really nice class discussion? So I wanted to say that about grades, and this isn't certainly not directed at anybody. That's something I should have said at the beginning of class, that's sort of my philosophy on grading. We can talk about individual grades, but I want you to know I think so many of you are doing such good work, such good important work. So that brings us to project 1, the draft. I think my comments centered around that may have been confusing to a lot of you, because I got a lot of responses on this, was that I'm saying, tell me, yes, you're providing excellent historical context for what happened, right? And then I'm saying, but I don't have enough commentary on the rhetoric. So let's just take a basic example. So let's say you were writing about Martin Luther King Jr. during the Civil Rights Movement, and you want to talk about maybe 3 of his major speeches, right? I think probably a great strategy for something like that is that the context that you set, let's say you take each rhetoric individually and you talk about, let's say, the I Have a Dream speech. You give us the historical context, like how did this speech and moment come to be, And then what I mean by the analyzing the rhetoric is so many people have written commentary on what this speech meant at that time, right? I mean, I have a dream, just Googling something like commentary on I have a dream or impact on I have a dream speech. That means that your research extends. Sorry, you gave us information about what happened, but then the second part is that what did the I have a dream speech mean for people? Why was it so significant? There's been scholars and writers talking about that for decades, right? So that rhetoric piece is just, can you give me some what I'd call commentary on that rhetoric? So again, why was I have a dream? What are scholars saying about why I have a dream had such an impact at that moment? And what are some of the, so I have a dream, we know that speech so well, but you guys, many of you have picked pieces of rhetoric that we've never heard, or we've never seen the film, or we've never seen news footage of the riot. So how can you help us hear or see the rhetoric? So let's just take, I had a student who wrote about the Rodney King trial. And one of her pieces of rhetoric was and this is the footage of the actual Rodney King beating, right? And we've all seen it, but she provided some level of detail about what that video actually looked like. And then she found some commentary, social commentary about why that video had the impact it had, right? So she set up, how did we get to the Rodney King beating video, right? And then what did that look and feel like? And then who is speaking to its lasting impact? Where can we find some scholarly or social commentary on why that video was so important? So that's what I'd like you to try to do with the pieces of rhetoric you've chosen, right? Is that, and I think probably most of you structurally will work the best, especially if you picked 3 pieces or so. Explain the context for, let's just say, even Stanton's speech, right, during the women's suffrage movement. When did she give that speech, right? That's the context. And then what were some of her words in that? Many of us have heard that speech, but many of us haven't. So what are some, tell us actual words, like Stanton says, blah, blah, blah. And then the social commentary pieces, scholars or other people commenting on why that speech had such an impact. I hope that's beginning to make sense, but if it's not, I would love to talk to you individually about your projects. I know Wednesday is getting close, but we have really this week to continue work on this project, because I know it's like I said, it unravels. It doesn't just happen immediately. So the only other assignment you have this week is to peer review 2 other peers. And that will give you some sense of how are other people writing this thing and how can I help them move forward. And we actually won't revise this piece for another couple of weeks. So like I said, I think essay writing and revision is just, it's fluid and it moves and it doesn't happen overnight. So you'll review 2 peers by Sunday. So if you need a little more time than Wednesday to kind of get your thoughts wrapped around this and get a good draft out, you have time. And I would love to talk to you each individually if you think that would help. Even if you're good on the project, but you just need clarity on other parts of the class. So I'm requesting people, if you're comfortable, to text message me. I left my phone number a few times. If you're just to say, we set up an appointment? It's just easier for us to go back and forth. If you're not comfortable with that, you can obviously send me a message in Canvas and say, when's a good time for us to chat in the next few days. I unfortunately am heading to not unfortunately, it's actually really great, to the Humanities Summit up at UNH for Tuesday and Wednesday, where we're talking about how to advance humanities education, which is great. But so I'll be in between sessions during those conferences, but I really do want to try to be available to you even through that. So text message me or email me, and we'll set up a time within the next few days to chat about your project if you're really at a point where conversation is going to help. And then, like I said, only a peer review. And then I did show you Essay 2 not to get you overwhelmed, because we're still working on Essay 1. But I just want you to start thinking about Essay 2, because we are scheduled to start that next week. And it's a problem solution paper. I think it's a lot more black and white than what we're doing right now. And it's about a community conflict. So stay in touch with me, And let's chat if you'd like to over the phone, and let me know what other clarity I can provide you. Okay, you're all doing really good work, and I'm excited to see your drafts.